If some of the questions
This meeting is being recorded.
If some of the questions are kind of hard, need a lengthy discussion, we'll deal with them at the end. And then just to reiterate, I do offer personal coaching. In fact, five people contacted me for Contra Costa County and Alameda County. And one person has already contacted Mike, who lives in Palo Alto, and we're working with all of those people. Please keep yourself muted and turn off your camera. And with that, I'd like to hand you over to Mike.
Let's see. Hello, how are you doing? Let me get real quick set up here. So I should have done this before, shouldn't I? When I think it was actually all the way back here.
Low battery.
Uh-oh.
Low battery.
My phone's talking to me. Start complaining about low battery. All right, so as you can see, my Nestbox tools slide, right, Georgette? So
yes, it's there. It's there.
Okay, let's talk about the tools that you might want to bring along when you go monitoring nest boxes. The first one is this is a bag that Georgette actually uses when she goes nest box monitoring. So this is actually like a 2-compartment bag. They go ahead and carry it along with them, and they carry pretty much anything that they think they need in it. And you can also bring along, you can use instead a day pack or a tool belt or a fishing vest or anything that can be used to carry your tools. So here are some of the safety items that you can bring to make your nest box monitoring a little bit safer. Of course, bringing along a hat, a cell phone for GPS. And, you know, I don't know if you're going to literally go out to a little 1-acre park right next to your house, or if you're going up into the open space country up in the hills, in which case maybe you have to walk half a mile, and you really want to be prepared in case something happens. But you know, a cell phone with GPS and a walking stick, water, a first aid kit, insect spray, snacks, and a compass. So you use your discretion. You can kind of think your way through all these things and figure out what it is you think that you might actually need while you're out there. And then our old friend Tom Gary uses the phrase, "These may come in handy." And the things that I'm about to tell you about may very well come in handy when you're out on the Bluebird Trail. A cell phone that could be used to record data. For example, I actually have gotten into the habit of recording a video where I give, I go in and tell myself what I found in the last 3 boxes. And then, you know, I'll do the next three boxes, and I'll go ahead and record another little video. Or you can just have a little note section somewhere if you have a little note app or something like that. And alternately, you can use scratch paper or print out one of the forms that we have on our website. We have forms that have, you know, it gives all the different things that we're looking for. It's not that hard to figure out. So don't forget a couple of pens and or pencils or something. And then if you like that screen idea that I went over last week, you want to obviously put that on your list too. If you have any questions about it, by the way, just go ahead and let us know. So if you are using hanging boxes, your list has got to obviously include some kind of lifter retriever, whether it is a hook style or the basket style. And that's as a reminder, we have a lot of information on hanging nest boxes on our website. And that's another one where if you have any questions, please do let us know. And then I have both a slotted screwdriver and a Phillips screwdriver here. And that's for a reason, because both of them have their uses. You never know when you have to pry something open. And I always recommend having Phillips screwdrivers in case a screw needs to be tightened or use them to open up your nest box and secure it. So believe me, I actually carry both kinds of screwdrivers with me the whole time. And the putty knives or paint scrapers are also really good to have along because they're easy to use, scraping out old nests out of the box. They do a much better job than just using the screwdriver, which is kind of the only other tool that you might have to clean out your nest box. And pliers are another one of those tools that rescue you when you can't get your nest box open and you don't want to go all the way back to the car to search for something else to help. So you want to have pliers in your bag because even those little twisty closers, the ones that are basically like a little bent nail that just cover over the wood in order to prevent it. Well, these are out in the rain and they get swollen and they start getting really hard to open. So it's good to have pliers along. And then brushes are good. I obviously, when you clean out those nest boxes, they've got a lot of dust and stuff like that in there. And it's good to be able to scrape the sides with these brushes to do a really good job. And then a cloth or a handkerchief. This is the mirror. Dental or mechanic's mirror are good to have because some of the nests can be hard to see into. Mirrors that you can put into a nest box to allow you to count eggs are useful because sometimes it's hard to see into the nest and you don't want to go and mess around with the nest necessarily. Now, here's the cloth or the handkerchief, one of Georgette's tricks to use when she uses her screen. She uses a cloth in conjunction where she puts the little cloth, kind of stuffs it into the entrance hole to make sure none of the nestlings come jumping out of the nest box as a pre-fledge. So this is a trick she got from Don Yoder. And then gloves, rubber or cloth or leather are good to have cleaning out nest boxes. And here are a few more things that are good to have. Masks, obviously. On the long trail even before COVID, we were using these masks. They're good to have, again, when cleaning out those dusty nest boxes. You don't want to inhale any of that stuff. Now, this is diatomaceous earth. It's a tool that you can use to combat ants. Though it looks like a powder, it actually has the consistency of broken glass as far as the ants are concerned. Use it carefully. Don't use it where it could come in contact with the skin of the little baby birds because it could irritate their skin. Remember, when they're first born, they don't have any skin, they don't have any feathers. They're not going to have feathers for at least a week, and they start getting them as they go. So you spread it around in areas where the birds are not going to go, but where the ants, if they were going to cross over it, they'd have to cross. So it's a really good tool to use in order to combat ants. Here's another tool that is used. Now, there's a couple of different products. One is called Tanglefoot. Tanglefoot is almost like a grease. Well, it is a grease. It's literally, if the ants are walking along on a tree branch on their way over there, then what you do is take the Tanglefoot and put it around the branch in a complete circumference so that the ants cannot cross over it. And then this is a similar kind of product. It's called Tangle Trap. And what they like about it is that it has like a little brush. If you open that up, it actually has a little brush, and so you can use that to be a little bit more controlled in where you put this product. It is a little bit less hard on. It's not the same as. It's more like, it looks more like rubber cement if you ever worked with that. But the thing is that both Tanglefoot and this, you have to be very careful with it also. So unfortunately, all of these anti-ant products, you really have to be careful with because you do not want to get, with this grease or the Tangle Trap, you don't want the feathers to get into it. If you use it too close to the birds, or even if you use it outside the nest, but in an area where the birds might end up just coming in contact with, it could be a real problem. So really avoid using this if you can't do it correctly. Now, Lee Pauser is the one who recommended this tingle trap, and this is what he says. I prefer this can of it because it includes a brush. Care must be taken to avoid applying it where a bird might come in contact with it. So I apply a band of it completely around the wire, just below the hanger wire's hook. And of course, he does a lot of work with hanging nest boxes. So when he says he puts it around the wire, he's talking about the wire of the hanging nest box between where it comes off the tree and the box itself. The band could be about a 1/2 inch to 1 inch wide or so. It becomes less effective as the surface hardens or enough ants get stuck in it to form a bridge. It may need to be refreshed the next week. One also needs to be careful not to let it come in contact with, not to contact it yourself. So the human, whoever is handling this box, don't you accidentally touch this stuff either. And it's hard to clean off. So screws often come in handy. Sometimes you need to find a longer screw to replace one that just isn't holding the box closed anymore, or the nest box is loose and needs to be tightened up somewhere. And plastic bags, big or small, often are useful because you never know when you're going to find something that you want to hold on to. You don't want to. There are reasons why you might not want to leave a nest, a dirty nest, right next to the nest box. So you might want to put that in there and carry it out with you. And you will no doubt collect small containers. Nice to have a little container, a little plastic container that you can hold on to grass and things like that, so that you can use them to help reconstruct nests that get wet or for some other reason just don't work. Maybe they've got ants or something like that, and you feel like you really need to replace that nest. It's nice to have some good material, clean material that you can work with to replace all or part of that nest. And then a lot of people start off with the idea of, you will no doubt collect other items on your trip for your trail, like hammers, stakes, wire, extra boxes, but these are the essentials to get you started. So a lot of people start off with the idea of putting a nest box in their yard, and that may work and it may not. So it usually takes at least an acre of grassland to make good hunting grounds for a Western bluebird nest, and more if we're talking about a mountain bluebird family. Your lawn might get hunted by bluebirds, but it may take more territory to really do that. A schoolyard across the fence, for example, would absolutely provide enough, a really good source of food. It just matters how much food is available. If you see bluebirds in your yard, by all means, put up a bluebird house. If you see them nearby, put up a bluebird house. If you never see them, or you can tell that there isn't a native plant within a 1/4 mile of your house, maybe your backyard isn't the best place for a nest box. But then again, there are backyards that have no bluebirds, but they do have other cavity nesting birds hoping for your assistance. If you think this might be you, let us know and we'll see what is going on. So native plants are the key to success in the backyard nest, not just what is in your yard, but what is nearby. And as I said, the grassland, it can include all of the lawns and any grassland nearby. It can include any large open grassy areas near your house. It can include the lawns of the other people in your neighborhood, as long as they're not using pesticides. So it's just a matter of what is nearby. But let's say you live in an apartment, or you know your backyard is not a good place for a nest box. Look at the park nearby or other open space. You can set up a nest box trail. So a nest box trail is a string or strings of nest boxes. For example, I have a nest box trail with 3 lines of nest boxes, including bluebird boxes, chickadee boxes, barn owl boxes, and American kestrel boxes. Don't put up nest boxes on public property without getting permission first. The way you do this is to find out who controls it and go to them and ask. They are actually kind of used to people making these requests. they'll have questions for you, and we can usually help you through that process. We often have the answers to the questions that they're asking. So, by the way, county parks, city parks, or even utility districts often have volunteer groups. Joining volunteer groups like this may make the job of setting up a nest box trail on their land controlled by that agency much easier. And one question they often have is what kind of birds might nest in your nest box? Now, I've made a big deal about the fact that the birds need to be in your neighborhood to nest in your box. Well, how could you possibly know that? Well, here's one idea. eBird is an app and website that allows you to find birds and birders that birders have found in your neighborhood. That is popular and getting better and better known and used. You can see what cavity nesting birds are common near your house. And if you are looking at a park or other open space, the birders may be birding there. And when you set up a nest box trail, know what species to expect and install boxes that use the preferences we know each target species prefers. And this is where, for example, the personal coaching that Georgette is offering will come in, because we can often tell what kind of birds just by looking at the trees and the other vegetation around. We can tell what you might be able to expect there. And we know how to go to eBird and look and see what birds are seen there. So we can tell when there's hope for a bird using your nest box and when there's no hope for a bird using your nest box. And in summary, when you're setting up a nest box trail, consider the habitat, the canopy, the tree species, birds seen in the area, pesticides used nearby, human activity, construction, perches or for hunting, and the safe entry for parents. So there are a few ways to mount your nest box. Let's go over them and discuss the pros and cons of each. Pole mounted nest boxes are probably the preferred method of mounting a nest box anywhere, if it is available to you. It isn't always available to you. For example, it isn't available to me on my trail in my county park. Installing a pole is considered development, and it takes a CEQA process, believe it or not, including getting community comment over a number of weeks to install them. That being said, they should be considered in your case. Installation can involve quite a process, such as using an auger like this one. These can dig out a good pole hole pretty fast, but remember to check with the utilities to be sure that you aren't going to hit a gas line or something. Or you could just start the hole using a shovel or a post hole digger. And frankly, you may not even need that if the ground is soft, like if it's just rained. These fence post drivers are a good way to drive the pole into the ground. If the ground is soft enough, you probably won't even need to start with an auger or a shovel. And look at the conduit clamp in the middle of this pole. This is a good way to secure a nest box to a pole. U-bolts can also do the job. Notice that the conduit clamp is screwed into the floor of the nest box. And notice that Tim McClintock, our volunteer here, is drilling into the pole and through the wood so he can put a bolt through that will hold the box to the pole in one place. You can also drill through the clamp to the pole. The pole is actually electrical conduit. So that's what's it's available at Home Depot or any place like that. And there are a number of ways to attach the box to the pole. Remember, I showed you the conduit clamps. Some of Tim's boxes have track rails. That's what you see on the back of this box. Track rails have parts that allow the box to be clamped to the pole. So there are a number of different ways to attach the nest box to the pole. So the pros of using a pole mounted nest box include the fact that they're easy to put in and move. Now, when I say they're easy to move, it kind of depends on how hard the ground is, because you might have a hard time trying to pull them back out of the ground, but we're not using cement when we put them in. So theoretically, you should be able to bring them out. If it's rained recently, it should be easy enough to kind of move them back and forth and kind of pull them out of the ground. But the more important thing is that you can put that pole anywhere. You can put it the perfect distance to a tree. You could put it the perfect distance to the other poles. You could put it the perfect distance wherever. When you first put it in, you get to choose the exact location you're going to put it down. Okay, and they're compatible with the stovepipe baffle and the knoll guard, two really good predator guards, probably the best predator guards out there. And they're not as vulnerable to predators when you've got especially when they've got the knoll guard and the stovepipe baffle. And if you were to get across the nation and try and find the best, you would like Johnny nest box and putting nest boxes everywhere, and you wanted the best kind of nest box to use everywhere, it would be the pole mounted nest box. The hanging nest box is really good in California, but it's really bad in other places like Louisiana. And then the cons of pole mounted nest boxes. The main is just, as I explained, they're not always an option. So then we come to post-mounted boxes. And installation of a post-mounted box is actually really, really easy. All you have to do is have a battery-operated drill driver and screws. And then you literally just screw through the bottom of the nest box you see there into the post. And it's easy to move them because, well, that's one of the pros. It's easy to move because let's say something happens here, they get hit by a snake. I'm going to tell you about moving the nest box is often one of the best responses you can have to predation. And you can easily move post-mounted nest boxes simply by back out the screws and move them to a different post and screw them back in again. So that's one of the biggest pros, and they may be your only option. For example, for me, these are my only option. I'm not supposed to put them on trees. I can put them in trees on hanging boxes, but I'm not supposed to put them on poles, and I'm not supposed to actually screw them into trees, as you will see us use elsewhere. So in this case, it's pretty much my only option. And then the cons, they're very vulnerable to predators. In fact, we sometimes have people who really know their way around monitoring nest boxes. And if they saw me talking about post-mounted nest boxes or the next one, which is tree-mounted nest boxes, their jaws would drop and they'd be very unhappy with me. But here's the thing. Sometimes it is, like I said, the only way that, for example, a park might allow you to do it. So if that's the case, then maybe that's what you have to do. Tree-mounted nest boxes. Now, the installation of tree-mounted nest boxes is pretty much the same as with the pole-mounted nest box. As you can see, installation is pretty much just screw in using a battery-operated drill driver. So installation is easy, moving them is easy. So that's the big pros and the cons. And they may be your only option. For example, at golf courses. Now, golf courses do not like the idea of pole-mounted nest boxes because they have to mow all the time. They don't like the idea of post-mounted. It's not that they don't like the idea of post-mounted nest boxes. They don't have posts. And and they're okay with actually hanging nest boxes, but that's not always going to be available to the nest box monitor. So there are going to be times when, and not to mention the fact that their big con, which is they're vulnerable to predators. One of those big predators is snakes. And one thing about golf courses is they have very low grass. So snakes don't feel comfortable crawling through the grass. You go to my county park, the grass could be, up to your hip. And so they have no problem crawling around there. But in a golf course, not so much. So they're going to be a lot safer, especially if you use a knoll guard, even though it's on a tree. And then we come to the hanging nest boxes. Now, the installation of a hanging nest box, as you can see, is to use a pole type retriever lifter, and that allows you to lift the box up onto the branch of a tree. There are a couple of different kind of retrievers that I'll talk about. The installation is once you have the nest box, so that it takes a little bit to balance the wire when you're building the nest box, so that they hang right. And then once you put them up on the tree, then they're good. That it's fairly easy, but and by the way, here is a video of me removing it with my basket style retriever. So hanging nest boxes are really good when it comes to like I said, the predation. Snakes are the biggest predator we really have out there, and they don't usually climb way up in the trees in order to find their way to your nest box. Now this is a chickadee egg, chickadee young, so you can see that chickadees love hanging nest boxes, as do oak titmice and many of the other other birds. Bluebirds also like hanging nest boxes. They have no problem with it. And remember, hanging nest boxes are going to be under canopy, so they're not as vulnerable to predators in California. That's important. They are excellent for many different species, including bluebirds, tree swallows. All of them really like using hanging nest boxes if that's what's available. And then as global climate change worsens, the cooling effects of the canopy are really going to help. So we're going to probably want to start putting more nest boxes under the canopy, and it keeps the nest boxes away from vandals. What does that mean? The place in my park where I use the hanging nest boxes is near a picnic area. And the problem with the picnic area is that there are a lot of kids that are involved with the picnic, and eventually the parents just say, go out and have fun. And so to them, having fun means, finding mischief somewhere. And if the nest box is right down at their level, they could walk up and start knocking on it, or doing some other way of interfering with the active mother trying to get back into the nest box. So by having them up out of the way, the kids are not as able to go up there and get them. Yeah, of course they can climb a tree, but in my experience, having hanging nest boxes does the trick in really reducing the amount of vandalism. These are two different kind of nest box retrievers, and I apologize that the hook style down there is almost hidden by the basket style. So the hook style is very easy to make. You get a swimming pool pole, the kind you use for having little nets that you use in the pool. Just get the pole itself, and then you get a hook that is the style that you can put a nut on both sides, and then you just go ahead and put the two nuts on, and you're in. That's it. That's the whole retriever. The basket style, as you can imagine, is a lot more intricate, and there are different kinds. I showed you a wire style basket retriever. We have also used wooden style retrievers, which are much heavier, and we no longer, you don't really see them in use anymore. The thing about these is that they could be kind of heavy. You need to have a certain amount of upper body strength in order to use them. So the hook style of retriever, the way that it hangs off can be a little bit more daunting. And the way you deal with that is just make sure don't hang it too high up. So for example, 12 feet. I have some nest boxes that are 17 feet up. You don't need to do that. You could go ahead and just have them so that they're basically out of the way of mischievous kids. And once you do that, then that should be fine, even though the pole mounted. But make sure and try these things out. If you can ask us if you are nowhere near Cupertino, but if you live near Cupertino, you can always go and try our nest box retriever over there and see what you think, and go ahead and talk to us, and we'll try and figure out something for you. because retrievers are kind of one of the keys to dealing with hanging nest boxes. And so this is the hook style retriever being used, as you can see. So why keep data? Let's see. Well, you can't remember everything that happens. Learn and study what you find. Keep notes week by week. And the notes of repairs that are needed, the number of eggs, the presence of hatchlings, the bird species. This will assist you with knowing where in the nesting cycle each nest box is. And forms available online, or you could just keep good notes. So, and then as far as reporting your data, there's a couple of different ways to do this. One is to Nest Watch, which is run by Cornell. And we do recommend that you do this. There's an app that you can download, and it actually helps you with GPS locations of your nest boxes. The app will actually help you get the exact GPS locations of these boxes, and they actually would like you to report every week what you find. So during the nesting season, you're going to be checking every week, hopefully. And so then you can go ahead and fill out the little report as soon as you're done with that week's check. They have a nest and egg ID help. So you find a nest, you're like, what was this? You can go there and they'll help you. And they have nest box plans and tips. And also, Citizen Science, our own organization also asks for your data. Now, we do things a little bit differently. We have annual reporting. So we only ask you to go to our website once in order to enter it. We ask for the number of nests, eggs, hatchlings, and fledglings of each species. And we maintain an email list. So we'll notify you of data entry information, and even when we're having events. If you see Dick's actually still watching here. He's the guy you're going to send. If you want to be on his email list, he's the one to tell you to tell. So you can put it in chat. And then let's see. Why would you give your data to CBRP, to California Bluebird Recovery Program? Well, your data tells us how effective our program is and where more attention could be given. It's our best tool to know which nest box trails are active and which might need new monitors. The data can be used to spot troubling trends in cavity nesting bird populations, especially in California. I've mentioned our nest box monitor, Lee Pauser, several times, and he was actually talking to people at Cornell. Using our data, he was able to show the tree swallows in California were struggling this last season. That is something that not even Cornell was aware of. Late season rains, winds, climate change can all affect bluebirds and other cavity nesting bird populations. Bluebirds are an indicator species, and these can all be studied through our data. As global warming gets worse, we can learn what works and what doesn't by studying our data. We have data over all the counties in California, at least the ones that report, and even down to trails. So, challenges. Let's see. At this point, it may sound like I've covered some pretty negative stuff. And the challenges section is even more of that. But much of the stuff that I will tell you about in challenges is actually kind of rare. I'd have to say that most of them have happened once to either Georgette or I over the decade or more that both of us have been monitoring, but many of them I've never experienced, and many of them neither has Georgette. I like being really thorough in my training sessions, but I don't want you to think, wait a minute, what am I getting myself into? The truth is that the rewarding part of finding eggs and baby birds is the thing that happens every single week. And the unfortunate discoveries, they happen infrequently. With that being said, let's talk about some of the stuff that you might find on the trail and what to do about it. One of the most common predators we find is the gopher snake. I'm showing you a photo of a gopher snake in a nest box, but let me be frank that this is not what you will find in the vast majority of snake attacks. This is. The snakes hit and run. And let me point out that snakes are something that can be relatively abundant in some places and they're just not around elsewhere. Georgette, for example, has no problems with snakes whatsoever. Many manicured golf courses or cemeteries or places like that just don't have hiding places for snakes. My county park, with its hiking trails, does have snakes, and I have to plan accordingly. Let me go back. There we go. So first, one of the best responses to snake depredation is to move the box. Snakes, like many predators, get educated the first time they find food in a nest box. They learn where to find a meal, and they may return in a couple of weeks. By moving the box, you kind of reset it. I mentioned knoll guards and stovepipe baffles. Use these if they are available to you as a deterrent to snakes. And raccoons. Now, I had a raccoon attack once on my nest boxes. Once. Raccoons are clever and strong and can rip a nest box apart. That is what happened to my boxes. I lost 2 boxes to raccoons. I said they were smart, and sadly, of the raccoon attacks I've heard about, they usually seem to hit more than 1 box. This make those nest boxes nice and sturdy if you can. This is a screenshot from a video of a raccoon hitting a nest box. This raccoon has entirely too much of his arm in this box, and I have to assume that perhaps it was a slot box or the entrance was too big. Raccoon attacks are very rare, so I would suggest making sure the entrance hole on your nest box is no larger than it has to be, that the nest box is made sturdy, and then just assume that it won't happen. When it does, ask us for ideas on how to respond. European paper wasps are usually found in boxes that are left in the full sun. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that you usually find them there. I mean, if you find them, that's usually where the box was. You can rub a bar of soap along the box ceiling, and they will have trouble affixing their comb to the ceiling, which is what they usually like to do. The other idea I have for you is to be sure you have good ventilation along the top of the box. Wasps don't like ventilation along the top of that box. And I actually kind of hope you have this problem. Bumblebees, they're native pollinators, and they're struggling. They do sometimes build nests in our nest boxes, especially liking old chickadee nests, which are very soft. Now, I'm always glad to see bumblebees because it's a sign of a healthy ecosystem. And you can put up another nest box for the birds. They may be there for the rest of the nesting season. They may move on when it's over. Honeybees are very rarely a problem, but if they are, you could just wait to see if they're still there the next week. And they sometimes swarm in nest boxes on a very temporary basis. If they linger, you can call in one of your bee people to remove them. And ants can also be a problem. Now, I've already discussed some solutions. The little Argentine ants have been known to hang around harmlessly in the nest box. When I have found Argentine ants all over dead nestlings, it has never been clear that the ants were the real problem. Maybe they were just there to scavenge when the babies had died from something else. But fire ants are a different story. Fire ants or certain other large ant species can be more harmful. If ants are a problem, in addition to using diatomaceous earth or Tanglefoot or that Tangle Trap product, move that box. And blowflies and other parasites, I've never actually had a problem with them. Unfortunately, they seem to be an issue that you may never know about as a nest box monitor because it is something the birds have to live with independently. Thus, what I could say is that you should always clear out those old nests when you find them to prevent parasites from reproducing in the nest. So you clean out the nest after every brood. So you come along, you find an empty nest, get rid of that nest, and that removes parasite eggs that might be there. So let's see. These wire platforms are supposed to prevent blowflies. Now, I've never had a problem with blowflies, but this is a big state, and what isn't a problem in one location may be a problem somewhere else. So if blowflies are an issue for you, look into these wire platforms. And then there's corvids and hawks. corvids are like jays and things like that. Like the scrub jay. Birds like this can try and peek in and get a nestling. To combat this, use predator guards as best as you can. Remove old nests so that the birds don't have to build new nests on top of the old ones. And knoll guards are good for this. Wood guards will help. And I've already talked about house sparrows. We have advice on house sparrows on our website, cbrp.org. And I think I've talked about house sparrows earlier. Now, under getting started, if you look at under getting started right here, and then go to nest box monitoring, that takes you into our training page. And the house sparrow information is towards the bottom. And there's actually a lot of other information there too, by the way. We've actually put a lot of information on our website, including a lot of the training that I'm giving you. It's actually there in text form, along with various other videos and photos. And then the house wrens. Now they're a bit different, mainly because they're native birds. Unlike house sparrows, house wrens are protected by law. They're a jealous little bird. They like to nest near thickets, and the way you'll know when they're around, because this is the kind of nest you'll find. And the thing that we need to do is keep them away from all the other birds. They're not good neighbors. They will come and they'll peck eggs of birds that they think are nesting too close to them. So if you have house wrens, you can talk to us. It's a little bit more involved than I want to really get into here. But house wrens are something that I really want everybody to since they're native birds, they deserve our help. But we want to be careful that we don't just let them run roughshod over all the other birds nearby. And then woodpeckers. Now, let's see. Well, obviously woodpeckers, the big problem with them is they keep opening up the entrance hole to the nest box. And why you find woodpeckers in your nest box is kind of weird. They're not usually there. I've mentioned already, I believe, that woodpeckers have found their way into my pine nest boxes and raised young. This is actually Lee Pauser's picture, but I have one very similar to it. I think they're cool, and I'm happy to see them. This is a Nuttall's woodpecker. We've also found downy woodpeckers in our nest boxes. So then here is a video, and hopefully you can hear. Have you been hearing the audio of the previous videos? I'm hoping so, because this one actually matters. Let me know, Georgette, if you don't hear the audio.
This is like some kind of little bit of a woodpecker haven, and you can see they've modified this box. So it just happens that I work in a violin shop, that I can put a thin piece of one of these on, and the right hole, the Bluebird size, and this is a chickadee box.
Why do you need to put the piece?
Well, see how the woodpeckers have picked that hole?
Yeah.
See how the hole's not the right size anymore?
Oh,
it's only supposed to be 1.25 inches on these boxes.
Okay.
And that's definitely not 1.25 inches. That's more like 1.5 inches. And so I have these protectors of different sizes here. Verify that. Yeah, there's a smaller one. So this is the one I want. This dude. Okay, so first we'll drill a couple of holes.
Oh, I like it.
I don't have to worry about drilling a hole into this because it's soft, but this hardwood, there's no way to getting a screw through that would be quite a bit. So that's why we have the drill. Like, no, I'm not, because then it's easier for the predators, and it's just not the right size. And also, that's why we do this.
I hope everybody heard that audio. That was Tex Houston. the former county coordinator for Santa Clara County. He was my predecessor. And so I obviously learned a lot from him. And when he said he worked at a violin shop, and then we cut off of that, we edited away. But what he was saying was that the wood that he's got here came from the violin shop, that they basically were getting rid of this wood. And he said, oh, I can use this. And he drilled the holes to replace it. Now, something else you might have heard him say was that he was that the woodpeckers had opened up the hole from 1.25 to 1.5 inches. And if you remember right, I said that bluebirds like 1.5 inch hole. But the thing is that so do house sparrows. Bluebirds have to compete with house sparrows because both of them like the same entrance size. But in this area, although there are bluebirds around, and he's given some of the nest boxes to them, many of the other nest boxes, he's actually given them smaller entrance holes so that they're good for the smaller bird species. For example, chestnut-backed chickadee, oak titmouse, the Bewick's wren. There are many different kind of bird species that we cater to, especially up in oak trees and coniferous trees, things like that. And they like 1.25 inch hole. And so if the woodpeckers go and open it up, then we're actually trying to go down lower so the bluebirds can't get in there, or the house sparrows, whatever. So, and that kind of explains to you what to do in the case of woodpeckers going in and opening up the nest box. You just put another piece of wood over it, or I'd actually talked about a little metal piece that's shaped the same way. You often see them on brand new nest boxes you buy, commercial nest boxes you buy. They have a metal guard to protect them from woodpeckers. And then mice, rats, and squirrels. Now, I don't have a problem with squirrels, but I was told I should go ahead and include it. They are rodents, obviously. Squirrels don't usually get into our regular nest boxes if the entrance hole size is correct, but they theoretically they could. And now mice and wood rats is a different story, because mice and wood rats, I should say deer mice and wood rats are both native species of rodents. And so as such, and by the way, in my county park, I couldn't get rid of them if I wanted to. That's just the way it is. It's a county park. You can't go in there and just kill things like that. So they are allowed to take at least some of my boxes. Now, Lee Pauser actually has developed a kind of a device that he puts up on top of the nest box. I need to make sure it's on our website. The idea is it kind of is like, if you ever seen the things where, you know, if you're a mouse and you land on top of the hanging nest box and you kind of flip off, it's just basically a little platform, and the platform's real unsteady in it. And if you land on it as you're falling from the tree branch, you go careening right off of it. They're fine. They're not gonna, if they land on the ground, they'll be fine. And so the thing about deer mice and wood rats is they are the bottom of the food chain. They're important. So not only, so when I tell you that I can't get rid of them, I wouldn't want to get rid of them even if I could. So I just figure that it's a reason to have lots of nest boxes up at my trail, so that the mice and the rats, now unfortunately mice and rats can be carnivorous. So you want to make sure that that there are nest boxes they can't get into. Then cats. Now this is my cat back before she died, trying to tell me why I couldn't have a clean laundry. But cats are a challenge. And when you put up a nest box, I think I've already talked about cats. Basically, make sure that nest box is nowhere that a cat can get to. Don't put it near a fence or some kind of post that the cat can jump over from. Keep it well away from everything, and have a long overhang, have a knoll guard, whatever you can in order to prevent the cats from getting to your nest box. And then bats. Now, this is actually another case that I hope you have, because frankly, bats are important to us. They eat mosquitoes and things like that. We're making a big mistake by not really trying to help our bats. And you know, this whole thing, this whole scare about them giving diseases and things like that. Obviously, rabies is not something to be taken lightly. And I am not asking you to go and start petting that bat. When you see that bat, close the box back up, stay away from it. Okay. It will, chances are it will be gone the next time you open it up. But if you see a bat like that, then what you want to do is put up a bat house nearby. There are actual bat structures that you can use to give them a place to live. Because the reason this bat is here is because you couldn't find anywhere better to go. And so we need bats, and this is a sign of a healthy ecosystem. So, you know, don't shoo it away, because if you send it out in the daylight, it could be curtains for it, because then it could get caught by a falcon or something. So just leave it where it is. And chances are it'll be gone the next time you see it. And then soiled nests. Now, I already mentioned the plastic container that you could bring, get nice, but when you get a chance and you find a good soft grass that might make a good replacement nest, you can go ahead and put it in that. And then when you find something like this, then you have something to replace it with. And then, of course, unfortunately, there is mortality. Mortality means you come along and you find a dead nestling in the nest box, and you have to wonder, well, what happened to it? Well, obviously, there's going to be heat and cold. For example, if you know that somehow during the nesting season there was a real cold snap, or there was a real hot snap, a heat wave, and you know that it was, the temperatures were way over 100 for multiple days, that can not only really heat up temperatures inside the nest box, but it can also kill the insect population and discourage them from coming out. And if that happens, if the food source crashes, that's it. That's all you're going to have. The adults will be lucky to live through it by themselves. So food source crash, or the death of a parent. You know, if a falcon or something catches a parent, then the one parent that's left is going to really struggle to try and help. And so what you'll find is a dead 1 week old baby, a dead week and a half old baby, a dead 2 week old baby, that kind of thing. And then cleaning and repairing. So let's see. Obviously, repairing woodpecker damage, integrity of the roof and water tightness. You want to check these things. And this is a video that shows what happens in the winter in our nest boxes. That's a lot of birds in there, right? And those are not babies. Those are actually adult birds during the winter on a very cold morning. And what they do is they huddle together and use each other for warmth. And so it's not like we want to take down our boxes in the winter. You do want to go and check them and get them ready, because they actually have a job to do in the winter. They need to be there for roosting and things like that. So do you have any questions or things like that, Georgette?
I don't have any questions. I had a few that I answered.
Right.
We do have a few people who are not on my list, and I would appreciate it if you could give me your emails. We don't share our email lists or anything like that. I just want to be able to send you a follow-up, because we are going to be sending everybody a follow-up.
If you're hesitant to put it in our chat, you can go ahead and send it to info@cbrp.org, and just tell they say Georgette, here's my email, and
Yeah,
then to give us some other contact information and who you are and your whole situation, and we'll get back to you.
Okay. Well, Annette has asked, my neighbor had 5 eggs in the nest box unhatched, probably due to weather. So you want to answer that, Mike?
Well, it could have been weather. There's any number of things that could have happened, and that's a very common thing. That where an entire the eggs just sit there and sit there and sit there, and you keep going and finding the same eggs, and pretty soon you find little pieces of poop on them, and so you know that they're old eggs, and you pick them up, they're really light, and so exactly what is happening, it's hard to know. It could be weather. Now I mentioned that that you have to that the birds are playing a gambling game, because when they lay their eggs, they have to wonder what the insect load is going to be like in a month. So they're not feeding anything for 2 weeks. They're going to be feeding, the little babies that don't take all that much food from the 2 to the 3 week period. But then after that, those babies start getting ravenous. And if it starts getting to the point where the adult is going, you know what, this is not going to work. I've got 5 eggs here. There's no way I'm going to be able to feed 5 babies because the food is already, there's already no insect life. Maybe they'll abandon after that. So it could be heat. It could be that for some reason the mother was infertile. I know with chickens, they actually will lay eggs without being fertilized. So maybe the mother laid eggs and she wasn't fertilized. Or this could be any number of things. So you want to, that's another reason why it's good to have the cycle, the cycles, the Bluebird math down, so that you know where in the cycle they are, and you can kind of tell that that you have you can tell that you're that these eggs are just no good.
Okay, Tom King, thank you, Mike. Tom, and Arnett, that happens. We find fresh eggs in our nests, and we have no rhyme or reason for why the parents didn't incubate them, or maybe they weren't fertile. It's always sad, but it does happen. In fact, we have many more eggs laid than actually hatch. So, because every season we look at our numbers and we see how many eggs, how many hatches, how many fledges, and oftentimes from, just from looking at all our accumulated data, there's like a couple of thousand eggs that didn't hatch. So it's a shame.
Hopefully in your case, it's going to be 1 egg didn't hatch out of
Yeah.
the whole group.
But I'm talking about for all of California,
Yeah.
out of over 16,000 birds, or
Right.
eggs, or
Right.
fledges. And Tom asked, he is looking at putting boxes up on metal fence posts so they'd only be 3 to 4 feet high. I think that's too low.
That's too low.
And Tom, what I've done in the past, because you're probably trying to work with what you have, and we've had to do that often. What I would suggest that you do is get a fence stake that's much higher and put that behind the metal fence posts, wire it that way, and then put your box on that.
If he can do it, if they will allow him to attach, like you said, a fence post, which is those ones with the green with the little white top and the
Yes.
and the little arrow thing at the bottom, or you could the piece of conduit type of thing that we were using,
Yeah.
but you would affix it up to the side. You don't have to bury it in the ground. What you need to do is go ahead and get a couple of those, maybe 3 or 4 of those clamps, and just kind of clamp it up to the side of the post, and that would raise it way up. Now, I don't think you'll be able to put a stovepipe baffle on that, but you can at least put a knoll guard, and that would help.
Okay. And thank you, Mike. And I'm working with Tom personally. We're doing some personal coaching, so he and I
Right.
will go over that too. And then, okay, Lauren asked, if you have a 2-acre site, would nest boxes be appropriate? And I say, would 2 nest boxes be appropriate? Well, my response to that is, it depends on the quality of the habitat. Because if you have a high quality habitat, like I have a trail at the Lafayette Reservoir in Lafayette, and in a couple of my areas, I have more than 2 boxes on 2 acres, and they do well. I get bluebirds and tree swallows because I do what is called pairing. I have boxes that are maybe only 50, 60, 80 feet apart, and bluebirds will use one and tree swallows will use the other. So
That's
my
what I was
sense-
gonna say. Don't expect to have 2 bluebirds, but you can but put them both up so that you don't have any fighting over the one nest box when it turns out that all the birds in your area are completely desperate. But you're not gonna have 2 of the same species, but you very well may have a tree swallow or a violet green swallow and a bluebird.
Yes, and what I would do is, if you want some more advice about the habitat on those 2 acres, please email us, and we can certainly give you more advice. And she has another comment here. Okay, let's see. They will be desperate as I am the campfire burn zone. Oh, well, if you're in the campfire burn zone, you might be able to put in more than 2 boxes. If you can use poles, and they're easy to install with the fence post driver because you can pull them back out again, I would go ahead and put them in and then just wait and see what's going on. Mike and I are working on a project right now. His family ranch and winery also was impacted by a burn. And so we're putting in boxes, an owl box and a kestrel box there because they have lost a lot of habitat also. So you're doing that is doing a very good thing, very good thing. And you might even want to put up an owl box, after examining the habitat. But just email us and we'll be glad to give you some, personal coaching. And then Len is asking, how are the wire guards attached? The knoll guards. Very easy, very easy. You put the knoll guard on, and you can use staples and the staple gun, or you can use small nail tacks. And generally, we put like 6 around. And boy, those things are solid. They are solidly attached. And then he was also talking about mites. Mites, we haven't had any problems with mites on our birds. At least I never have, and I've been doing this for 24 years. But if you're having predatorial type insects, blowflies, ants, you just sprinkle a little bit of diatomaceous earth underneath the nest, and that takes care of a lot. And you started using a leaf blower as part of the fall house cleaning process. Okay. Leaf blowers, well, if you like your place tidy, leaves are a great source of mulch and natural habitat. There's hundreds and hundreds of little creatures that live under mulch, leaf mulch. And I'm going to mention a resource next. And you might want to take a read a couple of Doug Ptolemy's books, and he does talk about mulch and that sort of thing, and the benefits of keeping mulch. And then what about paper wasps? Well, I have had many paper wasps, and generally, if they're in the wintertime, I've never had like a big comb of them. I always have the little combs, and there's 2 or 3 in there. And in the wintertime, I just leave them alone. They're slow as snails when it's cold, and I just leave them alone. And then when I'm getting ready to prepare my boxes for spring, I go in there. If they're still in there, I wait until it's kind of cool in the evening, and I just pop them out and they float away. I've never been bitten or attacked or anything.
I, on
And
the
then-
other hand,
Yeah.
I had a massive number of them in one of my boxes, and I actually took a video of it and posted it up on YouTube. That hundreds of paper wasps in one of the boxes, and what I did was I opened up the box and walked away.
Yeah, I
And,
let them out.
and,
Sure.
and the tree swallows that were hanging around outside came in and cleaned them out for me.
Oh, that's good.
As you said, they're not, they're relatively docile. They don't look that way. When they come flying out at you, you're like, whoa, you know, and you have to jump back, no matter, but they will generally just, fly away.
Yeah, so we have a we really have a no kill attitude. Like this past week, well, the late last summer, I think it was a wood rat that moved into one of my boxes, because there's a big wood rat condo that isn't too far away, and I think she must have found my nest box, and she built a huge nest in there all the way to the top. And so I just left her there because, nobody's going to nest in the box at the end of the season and that. So I went to clean it out this last week, and sure enough, that nest was in there, but I went ahead and cleaned it out. She was gone. The nursery was gone, and it was fine, so now.
European paper wasps ought to tell you, I mean, the very name ought to tell you what my attitude is toward them. So I wasn't too concerned about trying to preserve them. Whereas,
Oh,
like I
right.
said, bumblebees, they have my respect.
Oh,
Even house wrens have my respect. So
sure, of course, of
Um,
course. And then Tom is saying, Cornell is reporting eastern bluebird eggs already in nests this week. Well, oh, and Len is saying at this time of year, the paper wasp can simply be removed with a paintbrush. Good advice, Len. Have never used a paintbrush, but I just use my gloved hand and scoot them out of there. Yeah, you're right. They're very docile. You have experience with them. And Tom is saying Cornell is reporting eastern bluebird eggs already in nests this week. Does that provide any clue when we might expect them? Well, last year we had some pretty early nesting here in Contra Costa County. So we just don't know. I have a trail that every year it seems like, gosh, when are they ever going to get here? And then they finally show, then they come in like in March. But we have other areas where the bluebirds lay early, and definitely oak titmice and chickadees lay early.
I often don't see them until April.
Oh, there you go.
Late April either, but like you said, chickadees will come in first.
Yes, they do. And
Well, we
So-
should get into this.
sure. Okay, it's 10 after 8. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay. Oh, here's one, I think. Okay. Please remind attendees that we will be posting the recorded sessions on our website. I will not be able to send an email to the missing people. So that's our program director. So he is encouraging all of you who haven't given us their email addresses to please leave them and on our private email, info@cbrp.org. And like I said, we don't have email lists that we give out or anything like that. We would just email you, synopsis of what we did, and that's about it really, and offer you our help if you need it. Len, it sounds like you're already an experienced bluebirder, and I'd love to know about your trail and where you are and all that, and maybe you could share your data with us, this next year. So this really was a lot of information for us to cover, and we hope you've learned some key tips on what monitoring is, how to set up a trail, keep data, and monitor. And for those of you who have experience, we'd love to get your feedback. What didn't we cover? What would you like to see for new monitors the next time? And share some of your bits of wisdom, because hey, we all learn from each other. None of us oh, okay. So Len has been monitoring 60 houses for about 10 years. Man, you are really an experienced monitor. We definitely need to talk to you. Thank you. Thanks for letting us know that. So the first resource here is the California Bluebird Recovery Program website. And Tricia Jordan, our wonderful website designer, and she manages our website, plus she's a board member, put all of this information online for you guys so you can refer to it. Mike and I wrote all the copy, but she put it all in for us. Monitoring Your Bluebird Trail in California. Now that booklet is on the website under resources, and Hatch Graham was a very good friend of Don Yoder's, the founder of the program. And he wrote a fabulous booklet back then, and it's still totally applicable. And he offers details in there about the other birds that will nest in your nest boxes, which we didn't really talk about that much. Okay, so mountain bluebirds. If any of you have mountain bluebirds, Myrna Pearman is the expert on mountain bluebirds. And she's a retired biologist at Ellis Bird Farm in Alberta, Canada. And she is the one to turn to if you want to learn more about mountain bluebirds. The Bluebird Monitor's Guide is excellent. I used that when I first started monitoring, and has a beautiful pictorial in there about eastern bluebird babies and how, every single day it's documented, and some great tips in there. The Bluebird book by the Stokes, another very good general information book, and has a lot about behavior in there, which I think is always very interesting. Doug Ptolemy, who's an entomologist professor, has sparked a national conversation, and there's an unbreakable link between native plant species and native wildlife. Native insects cannot eat alien plants. They've adapted to some, they really have, and even adapted to create, making some plants that are not native into host plants. But for the most part, we need to have our native plants, because when native plants disappear, many of our insects disappear, and the quality of our habitats. The books that I highly recommend are Bringing Nature Home and The Nature of Oaks. And then we also have www.cialis.org. It's a comprehensive guide for everything bluebird. It's pretty amazing. And then we are affiliates of the North American Bluebird Society, and there's fact sheets on there available for you, and it's also a good source of information. And last but not least, Myrna Pearman just had this book published for young people, and it's actually good for any age. I'm going to be using it for my Eagle Scout candidates. We work with Eagle Scouts quite often, and in fact, I have 2 right now that I'm working with, and I'm going to make sure that they have copies of this, and you can get this for free on the North American Bluebird Society website. So unless we have any more questions, I would like to say goodnight, and I'm trying to get Len's email address.
Well,
Because I want to talk to you, Len, about those.
he
60
can send it to info@cbrp.org.
Oh, there's Annette. She's saying, look forward to saw mountain bluebirds on our Christmas bird count in Oroville. And now I wonder if she sees those year round, or it's just then, because they might have just come in for the winter time. Huh, that's really good that she saw mountain bluebirds. And I think that's really it.
Yeah. All right.
And
thank you. Bye-bye.
yeah, bye everybody. Stay in touch.